Okay, now where we left off, we went ahead and did a selection of the subject, and we went ahead and pressed Control J, which basically went ahead and duplicated the layer underneath into a different layer. And so what we're just going to do is delete the layer number two by pressing this little trash can icon on the bottom right hand corner. What we want to go ahead and go into now is the crop tool. Now, when you select the crop tool, the first thing that comes up on this side right here is on the left-hand top corner is the width and the height. That's your aspect, and right now we have 16 by 20, so we're just gonna go ahead and select this. And just keep in mind you do have the options for the rules of thirds. That's new to Photoshop CS5, and you can use that to go ahead and see uh, where your thirds are at, and that way you can go ahead and crop your image accordingly. And so once you select that, this perspective right here, the black will go ahead and actually, you can use 75 or 100%, so you can go ahead and just see how when you crop an image it's going to go ahead and look. Um, so if I were to accept this, it'll go ahead and throw everything else aside, and it just will keep that, and that's what you're going to go ahead and print out. Now, if in case you did a mistake, you just press Control Alt Z, and that's undo, and so it goes back to its original state. Also, whenever you go ahead and do something, you do have your history. So if you notice right here, I have on my preferences, I have selected that I have 41 preset or moves that I have done selected. So you can go ahead and go back and forth on your history brush or your history panel. And so we'll go ahead and move on to the spot healing brush tool. And there's a opinion of things. Some people believe that the patch tool is actually more helpful, and I do agree it's more helpful than the spot healing brush tool for the reason that what the healing spot healing brush tool does, it only takes a sample of the pixels around that, and then it heals based on that selection. Um, so if in case you're healing near the edge, in some cases it'll do it correctly. In other cases, it won't. And so what you want to do is make sure that you have your selection done properly. So you do the healing. You use the healing brush tool, and when you use the healing brush tool, it sort of works like a clone stamp, but it heals. It blends in instead of just overlapping what you have. So, like for example, I'll go ahead and hold on the Alt, and you have this little crosshair thing, and so I'll select this rhinestone right here, and on her dress, I'll go ahead and start drawing this area in. So as you can see, you'll see the area that it's taking a sample from, but then I'll do its best to go ahead and sample that and blend it in that new area, so it can go ahead and create a more accurate healing. This is great for flowers. You can select this area right here and just create another flower, and you can grab this area right here, and let's say I want a flower on this side, and just bring this in there, and then it does its best job in healing it. So now I don't have necessarily an orange flower like this one, but I do have a flower in there nevertheless. So it might seem a little bit crooked, so again I'll go ahead and take a sample from here and just give it more of a shape on this side, and it does a pretty interesting job in sampling certain items and putting them somewhere else and blending that work in. The other thing that you might want to go ahead and do, the patch tool, you just go ahead and select a certain area, and then you go ahead and select what other area you want to go ahead and copy, and it does a real bad job in blending it. So um, but it works great when you're trying to go ahead and clear up certain issues. Like right here, we have just a little shadow right here. So we did a selection. Now we're gonna go ahead and get a different selection right here. And once you do that, you press Control D, and it seems to go ahead and do it correctly. What when you're working with clear skin, but in other options, I mean, as long as you know what tools to use for what and experiment, that's the best way of learning. Let's go into the brush tool. And in order for me to go ahead and describe what the brush tool does, I need to open up a new document because the brush tool is actually a very complex tool. And once you learn how to use several things that it offers you, it can be a really, really good tool when you're retouching your images. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and select normal. I'm going to create a new layer. There's a little icon right next to the trash can, and you can go ahead and create a new layer. And what I did, I created a new transparency layer. And the reason why I did that is because I don't want anything to be on that layer. I want to show you what I can do with the brush tool. Now, on your brush tool, if you go ahead and right click, you have an option here, which is your hardness option. And I think this is new to CS5. I mean, it looks very familiar, where you have your new brush, the brushes that you have, and you can select different brushes on there. So let's go ahead and select that one. What this is, when you have hardness set up to 100%, when you go ahead and draw, it's actually a very hard circle. And so we're zooming right into it. And as you can see, it has a very hard edge. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ahead and go to hardness at 0%, and notice that the size of our circles shrink down. It's not necessarily that smaller, it's just that when you go ahead and draw with it, the difference that you get, it looks more like a little airbrush dot than a very hard dot. You can go ahead and keep on clicking on there, and of course the paint that you're using does go ahead and grow more. Very interesting. Now let's go ahead and create another layer, and this actually at the same time is giving you an introduction to what layers are. And so whenever you create another layer, you're overlapping the layer underneath. So if I come in with a red brush, what will happen is, and let me undo that because I think the best example to do is use a hard brush on this one. When you use another layer, you're actually painting underneath. Really cool thing about that when working with layers is that it all depends on what is stacked up on top of what. Meaning that if I were to pull layer 2 down, the black paintbrush that I did would actually be on top of the red brush, even though I did that after the red brush stroke before or after I did the black one. The other thing that I can go ahead and do is use my move tool and move this around and place it where I want it to be overlapping, and very, very interesting. So let's go ahead and select on the red brush, let's go ahead and select hardness down to 0 and see what that does on the other brush. So we're going to move it down to 0, and as you can see, it so emerges at a certain point. Since we did several different clicks on the black brush, so I just went ahead and did that. And this is a whole lot more smoother than this. And it all depends on what you're trying to do. I recommend that you use 0 hardness when you're working with people. That way you don't see harsh edges. And I'll go back to the image to go ahead and show you that. But I'll do that in the next movie. But we'll go ahead and go a little bit more deeper into layers as well.